Contestant in the sub-senior section is Sarah Blinko. Would you please give her a warm welcome?
Imagine you're in a room filled with high-spirited children, and everywhere you walk, you trip over Lego blocks, roller skates, dolls, and toys of all descriptions. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, I'm describing experiences to which most parents can relate. My introduction refers from ages 1 to 3. I'm sure many of you are aware of the terrible twos, where those little gems will never go to sleep when they should. You try everything, but why bother? They've slept all day, now it's time for fun and play. Next, the 3 to 4-year-old darlings, who constantly, when it's bedtime, insist that you read story after story. Eventually, when you're defeated, and when trying to sneak past a page or two, they know. And yes, you've guessed it, another reading right from the beginning. Then we have the intellectual. A young boy and his father were driving along when they noticed a dead possum hanging from a power line. "What's wrong with it?" asked the son. "It's dead," replied his father. "What's dead?" he asked. "Well, it's when it's sort of gone to sleep. It's like when you pick up a flower and it wilts and then, well, it depends on what religion you believe in." And the little boy put his hands on his hips, frowns and says, "Look, if you don't know, I'll ask my teacher." Now they're in the big time. They've started school. No more play school and into the real thing. School's hard, man. Maths, language, science, social studies, homework, and tests. You think this won't give a kid a headache? Where's the Panadol? The good thing about school is that your teachers make you really smart. You win scholarships to university and learn how to become a millionaire. That's cool. Parents never forget birthday parties. First, you are invaded as mothers bring their secret weapons to your front door. Then, bang, they're under the table, behind the TV. Chips, lollies, ice cream, cake are scattered everywhere. The tape recorder's at full volume. Wow, fun! Now, ladies and gentlemen, mums and dads, children and babies, in spite of this, I'd like to say that little children are nice. As Con the Fruiterist says, beautiful. Sometimes.
Our second contestant in the sub-senior section this evening is Kim Marillion. Please give her a warm round of applause.
Listen up, people. Got a story to tell about the rubbish in your bin that doesn't smell. Most of the rubbish that you throw out is the kind of rubbish I'll be talking about. Now, I've got your attention with this crazy rap, so I'll switch to my talk. But don't take a nap. We spend millions of dollars each year on getting rid of rubbish, when really most rubbish is valuable, useful and worth saving. What is that I hear? You think this is a load of rubbish? Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, let me tell you that the main thing wrong with rubbish is that people think it's rubbish. But I'm here tonight to convince you that most rubbish isn't really rubbish at all. If we begin by digging through some of the stuff my family has thrown in the bin today, I know you're sure to see what I mean. We began by throwing away an empty cornflakes packet, a carton of milk and a honey jar. This was followed by some vegetable peels, eggshells, last week's newspapers and that terrible shirt from Aunt Claire. Later out went some plastic shopping bags, a chili sauce bottle, a plastic bottle of lemonade and some old pads from school. My question is, Do we need to throw away so many things? A good idea will be to try making less rubbish in the first place. This can be done because almost everything we throw away can be used again. For instance, the vegetable peels and eggshells would make excellent material for a compost heap. And that shirt from Aunt Claire might suit someone else. It should go off to one of the charity shops along with all the other unused clothing. Those old rags can be shredded and used for the making of banknotes. Now that's not a load of rubbish, but a fine example of turning rags into riches. The chili bottle, honey jar and other glass products can be recycled. In America and some parts of Europe, glass is crushed into tiny pieces and used like gravel. This is called glass felt. It reflects off headlight beams, making the road easier to see at night. The empty cornflakes packet, carton of milk, last week's newspapers and the old pads from school are the ingredients of a horror story, more deadly than Dracula and more frightening than Frankenstein because paper is made from trees. And the following facts are all true and happening right now. Every 2 minutes all around the world, an area of forest the size of a soccer field is being destroyed. And for every 1,000 trees we cut down, we only plant 25 in their place. My advice is save paper and you'll help save the trees and the wildlife too. Now what's left in our bin? Only the plastic bags and plastic bottle. And that's because they're almost impossible to recycle. So keep away from plastic. My final word, remember, not all rubbish is rubbish and every little bit of recycling helps. And that's why I'm off to recycle my palm cards.
Our next contestant this evening is Lee Cobb. Would you please give him a warm welcome?
Bogey, birdie, divot, bunker, handicap, eagle, 4. I bet you thought I was speaking another language, but I was actually referring to the terms used in golf. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, fellow students. Some people think that golf is just hitting a ball into a hole, but there is a lot more to it than that. A game of golf can be very good exercise, but requires skill rather than strength. The main task is to hit your ball into a hole in as few shots as possible. This game is very challenging, for each hole may have water hazards, sand traps, and thick forest which should be avoided. At the end of a fairway there is a putting green, which is where the ball is putted into a hole. The basic set of golf clubs consists of woods and irons. A wood is usually used for hitting the ball long distances, and the irons, which play a very important part in the game of golf, are used to give the ball less distance but more accuracy and height. One of the most essential clubs is the putter, which is used for putting on the greens. Each club has a different slant, which will give the ball more height or distance. The more slant on the club, the more height. The game of golf would not be complete without the golf ball. It is constructed from rubber with a liquid centre, and the bumpy outer surface gives the ball more distance. Golf first originated in the year 1100 from a Roman game called Pangangsia. This game was played with a bent stick and a leather-covered ball stuffed with feathers. The first golf course was built in Scotland in 1744. It was named the Royal Ancient Golf Course of St Andrews. Back then, there were many heroes in golf, and we still have them today, such as Jack Nicklaus and Greg Norman. Jack Nicklaus has won 17 major tournaments throughout the world, and Greg Norman, who is one of Australia's best-known golfers, with his nickname being the Great White Shark. I have been playing golf for 1 year now, and on one hand, I find it very frustrating, but on the other, it has taught me patience, self-control, and skill. Lots of people play golf for many different reasons, but I play because I hope one day I'll be a champion. Who knows, maybe my nickname will be the Little White Shark.
Ladies and gentlemen, our fourth contestant this evening is Natalie Mann. Please give her a warm hand of applause.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The famous author, Mark Twain, was once heard to say, quote, "When I was a boy of 14, my parents were so ignorant, I could hardly stand to have them around. But when I got to 21, I was astonished at how much they had learnt in 7 years." My friends, I like that statement, for I feel that too many young people in our society fall into the category of taking their parents for granted. Personally, I believe you can have your Storm and Norman Schwartz, what's his name, and your Iron Lady Maggie Thatchers. The real heroes and heroines of this world are your common, everyday mums and dads. Only a dad would call no ball moments after your brother has just bowled you out in a backyard cricket test. Only a mum, who wasn't even looking, would swear it was a forward pass in a close game of backyard state of origin football. Isn't it great to go to your local show and pester your parents to take you on all of the wild rides on offer? When they reluctantly agree, you watch their knuckles turn white and their faces turn green as they scream with fear, whilst you scream with sheer excitement. Then, late at night, after the show, you pretend you're asleep in the back seat of the car, and it never fails. A strong pair of arms pick you up and carry you off to bed. The fact Dad has a crook back and a double hernia never gets mentioned. Only a parent can wipe away the frustrations of a terrible day at school, when the whole world seems to be against you, with a simple, "Hello, Princess, did you have a nice day?" I consider myself very privileged to have such devoted parents, and I really sympathise with those not so fortunate. That there exist uncaring parents or disrespectful children really is a dark blot in our society, for I believe that most of the vandalism, the petty crime, and the break and enters committed by juveniles stems from an unhappy home life. Whilst I can agree that every child at some time deserves a good spanking, it's hard to imagine there are adults intent on molesting or child bashing. Some heroes, I don't think. Every child needs a parent to help guide them along life's rocky road, to help share their joys and ease the pain of disappointment. So when parents talk about divorce or separation, don't you think they're forgetting someone? As the singer Tina Turner says, we don't need another hero. I agree. We have them everywhere, your common, everyday mums and dads. And to quote another singer, they really are the wind beneath our wings.
Our fifth contestant tonight is Matthew Redgan. Please give him a warm hand of applause.
Have you ever had a time when you had a cold and never had any orthoxycol in the house? Well, here's the answer. Kleenex. Yes, that's right. The thing that we all thought was portable toilet paper is actually a paper handkerchief. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Kleenex comes in 2 types of boxes. The big, the huge, the monstrous, economy size, and the little teeny travel pack. These boxes are really great
because an economy size will last you a whole winter of runny noses, and the travel pack will always fit in your pocket. If Kleenex hadn't been invented, every time we had a cold or a runny nose, we'd probably be doing this, or this, or this. I bet you're all thinking, how gross. But as you can see, there is an urgent need for something to be invented. And that's where Kleenex comes in. Did you know that the world's fastest sneeze was 167 kilometers an hour? And the germs in that travelled a distance of 3 meters? I bet that fellow's family stayed well away from him when he had a cold. Kleenex has many uses. It can be used as toilet paper in an emergency, to clog up the sink to tick off your mother, to wipe up spilt glue or Vegemite, and my personal favourite, it can be glued to the bald head of your sleeping father. Did you ever buy a pair of shoes that didn't quite fit? Well, here's what you can do. Get a couple of pieces of Kleenex, put it down the shoe, put it on, and hope that sucker doesn't slide right off your foot. Now, just think for a moment. If you had a runny nose and a box of Kleenex here, what would you do? Would you do this? Or this? Oh no, I would do the latter. Now, after you've used your Kleenex, there's a right way to dispose of it, and there is a wrong way to dispose of it. The right way is to put it in a bin, and the wrong way is to leave it in your pocket when your mum's doing the washing. Well, I've kept you kiddies up way past your bedtime. But before I go, what will you do next time you have a cold? Will you go out and blow your nose in some Kleenex? Or will you sit there hoping that your mother will clean up the mess you leave behind? You could say uh-oh, my dad's just woken up. No, Dad, it wasn't me. No!
Ladies and gentlemen, our sixth and final contestant in the sub-senior section this evening is Emily Rigby.
Your knees tremble and your teeth start to chatter and you have butterflies in your tummy like you would never believe. And then you realise that the judges want you to begin. You take a deep breath and sometimes wonder whether the right words are going to come out. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The opportunity for us to be able to speak in the Jaycees Speaks for Youth is wonderful. While preparing our speech, we learn how to research our topic and put the ideas down on paper in an interesting and entertaining way. Now, the hard part comes. We have to remember it. Mum and Dad must go crazy listening to me practice my speech. I do it while I'm in front of the mirror and while I'm in the shower. And Mum even says that I practice it in my sleep. Picking the subject is also one of the hardest things to do. One of the talks last year was very odd, but incredibly entertaining. It was on everyone's nightmare. Glad wrap. Can you imagine doing a 3-minute speech on it? You know yourself how much trouble you can get into when you're trying to wrap your lunch. While choosing a subject this year, I realised that speaking was the thing that I enjoyed doing most. Being able to speak well and to get your message across to the audience is also very important. Can you imagine if when Bob Hawke, while delivering his next campaign speech for the next election, and instead of saying, "My fellow Australians," he said, "You bunch of nincompoops." What a disaster. Even Kim Gingell, who acts the part of Corn Carpenter, has to have the confidence in himself to get up and speak the way he does. Books stimulate our imagination, and it's amazing how you can almost go back into a story when you're acting or telling it. Can you imagine going with Charlie on his amazing adventure to the chocolate factory? Let your mind drift off into the story. Can you imagine nibbling on a chocolate candy tree? Or munching on a lemon fudge chocolate bar? Or floating down a chocolate river in a pink candy boat? See, can't you almost taste these delicious delights? Yummy, yum, yum. It's making my mouth water just to think about it. When we leave high school, we all have to choose a career. Maybe you would like to be a famous actress, or maybe you, the new principal of Edge Hill State School, or maybe you, a politician. No matter what career you choose, being able to speak well can make things a whole lot easier. Only time can tell what I will be in the future, but wouldn't it be amazing if one day I was judging the Jaycees Speaks for Youth?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are now into the senior section. In this section, the speeches are for 5 minutes, with a warning bell at 4 and 2 bells at 5. Our adjudicators for this section is Miss Sue Hill. Sue is the Public Relations Officer for Jaycees. And Margaret McIsaac. Margaret teaches effective speaking at TAFE to adults, and she also teaches speech and drama to youth. And Margaret has also followed this competition since it began in 1978. Our third adjudicator, Mr. Philip Eastwood. Philip is a past president of Jaycees, and Philip has been in the state final of one of our own speaking competitions, and Philip in 1988 was in the state debate final, which our club won. Our first speaker for this evening is Paul Consiglio. Would you please give him a warm welcome?
Major league, dude. Totally awesome, man. Gnarly to the max. Hey, man, do I look cool or do I look rad? Good evening, Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. Struth. What sort of lingo is that? It's not Aussie. Stone the crows, that's how the Yanks talk. Could you imagine a swaggy from yesteryear getting caught up in a conversation like that? He'd flip his lid. Now the swaggy was a real true blue. He didn't work much, but humped his Matilda around. For those who don't know, it's a swag, like a rolled up blanket, and which was all his worldly possessions, especially his billy. Now the swaggy was a lazy bloke, but one thing he did was spread the Aussie slang. Slang, you could say, is the Dinkum Australian language. It was taken overseas for the first time by diggers during World War I. We have just finished giving the English cricketers a touch-up in all 5 tests, but us Aussies prefer to call them POMs. Yeah, how did the word originate? Well, POME stands for Prisoner of Mother England. Most of the first convicts were uneducated peasant folk who came from the different counties from England and Ireland. And with them came their way of speech and sayings. Some of these we have taken up, and that is how we have our slang. The early settlers had to do it the hard way, work hard from daylight till dark, to clear the land for farms, or mine for that elusive gold. And that's how we get the word battler, the bloke that does it the hard way. Now, the fella that doesn't work much is usually referred to as a bit of a bludger or a loafer, who either became a crook or a con man, who used his wit and the gift of the gab to get by. Now, the fella that likes practical jokes is usually referred to as a bit of a dag. Now, this is where the Aussie sense of humour comes in, because dag is the dried excreta hanging from a sheep's behind. I suppose the same connection is that they both should be removed. Now, when the fellow was going out for a night on the town, he didn't get dressed up like a sore toe because his mates would rib him and call him a two-bob laird trying to impress the Sheilas. Yeah, Sheilas. Not a very romantic sounding word, but the Aussie was never known for his flattery. You ask him and he'll tell you the Aussie Sheilas are always the best lookers. They also referred to as sorts, dames and skirts, with one word in common, bonza. Now, once a fella marries his Sheila, she is then referred to as his missus. And a sad Diavo, he's usually down at the local boozer, having a few grogs with his mates. He prefers to roll his own durries, you know, fags, and have a flutter on the nags. And when he's full, he'll go home and spin the missus a lousy yarn on why he had to stay so late. She goes crook and gives him an ear bashing and says, "Don't come the right time with me." And he is left to get his own tucker. Talking about prawns reminds me of a famous Australian actor, Paul Hogan. He made a commercial to lure the Yankee tourists to Australia, in which he says, "Put a shrimp on the barbie." I don't know, maybe the Yanks don't know what a prawn is. But the movie he made, Crocodile Dundee, was a huge success worldwide because its mannerisms and language were true blue. So you see, we should cherish and preserve our Australian slang. As for me, when I get older, I want to find myself a bonza Sheila and head out past the Black Stump where there's no TV and start my own little Australia with heaps of kids where they can fire a few ghoulies with their gings and not get into any strife. See you later, mate.